We continued discussing how to deal with the irrationalities in life. If you have a keen eye for observing the world, a sense of responsibility toward society, dealing with the irrational becomes a daily routine for you. This is an ancient issue, and in fact, the ancient Chinese already had their say on it. The three methods we discussed in the previous part, control, laissez-faire, and shaping, happen to correspond to the legalist, Daoist, and Confucian schools of thought in ancient China. The legalist approach in China is not the modern rule of law society where the king is under the law but rather an attempt to control the common people through various means. Whether through punishment, rewards, explicit institutional rules, or cunning tactics like, the severity of the penalty should be unpredictable, all these are essentially means of control. It is about making things convenient for the ruler and keeping everyone else in check, a form of oppression. Legalism is the authoritarian gene in China. On the other hand, Taoism represents a very modern ideology. It involves spontaneous order, similar to what Adam Smith referred to as the invisible hand, and the idea of decentralized, distributed politics. While Taoism may not have the entrepreneurial spirit, rational thinking, and democratic ideas as advocated by Hayek, its governance philosophy bears a striking resemblance to the laissez-faire capitalism promoted by Hayek. The years when ancient China applied Daoist principles under Huanglao's governance were the fastest growing economically, and people had their best times. However, Taoism has a drawback. As mentioned in the previous part, not all spontaneous orders are good. Taoism is effective in normal governance, but it lacks effective means in the face of major crises. For instance, during an economic crisis, Hayek would argue that it's normal, and you don't need to do anything. Just let the cycle pass. Advice that no modern government would heed. You might wonder, if I don't want to oppress anyone and want to do something, what should I do? In the context of Chinese philosophy, this leads us to Confucianism. Confucianism, during the time of Confucius and Mencius, was marginalized because it emphasized traditional hierarchical order, prioritized relationships with familiar people, and lacked large-scale solutions. After Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, Confucianism joined forces with legalism to strengthen imperial power, making it challenging to bring Confucianism to the forefront in the modern world. However, by removing outdated methods like clan lineage and hierarchical structures, Confucianism, at its core, could offer a solution to the modern world. I believe the key point is that, if you want someone to do good deeds, neither forcing them nor leaving them alone is the answer. You should influence them. In the authoritarian era, Confucian influence mainly relied on ritual and education, instilling a set of hierarchical rules in people. It wasn't about coercion but about making individuals genuinely believe that certain actions are right from within. Under Confucian education, the Chinese were always ready to show filial piety to parents, loyalty to the emperor, and a lack of emphasis on the self. However, you can't call this slavery because slaves lack autonomy. It's not hard control. It's soft shaping. While modern Chinese society emphasizes equality and individual fulfillment, rejecting the Confucian education of a century ago during the New Culture movement, if we set aside the specific historical practices of Confucianism and focus on the fundamental principle of shaping, not controlling, it could offer a sophisticated approach to dealing with complex matters in the modern world. Neil Chilson, a technology and innovation senior researcher at the Charles Koch Institute with a leaning towards libertarianism, published a book in 2021 titled Getting Out of Control: Emergent Leadership in a Complex World. The book summarizes various research findings on emergent systems and puts forth a core idea. Replace control with shaping. The term shaping might remind you of Ray Dalio's book, Principles, Life and Work, where Dalio identifies himself as a shaper, someone who can change the course of things according to his ideas. Everyone can shape things, as long as you have influence. You may not have control, but you can have influence. For complex matters, no one truly has control. Legalism's attempt to control China was not successful. The system would become increasingly costly, leaving everyone, including the emperor, feeling insecure. Without the help of Confucianism, the Qin dynasty's rule in China wouldn't have been stable. The only thing you can control is yourself. Even that is not entirely controllable. For example, you can't control the results of your actions. Chilson says the only thing you can control is your actions. Taking a more stoic approach, you could say the only thing you can control is your reaction to things in your thoughts. You can't control the rain. Still, you can choose how to face the fact of rain. If your family planned to go out for a day, and you really didn't want it to rain, but it did, you can choose acceptance over anger. Your choice will determine your actions, and your actions can influence your family, thereby shaping things to some extent. Note that this is a process of starting from within, affecting oneself and gradually expanding the circle of influence outward. This aligns with the standard Confucian concept of self-cultivation before managing the family, establishing order, and eventually influencing governance on a broader scale. Mencius talked about the king's way, suggesting that you shouldn't try to solve the world's problems systematically from the beginning. Focus on doing well in your local affairs, and people from distant places will naturally come to you. While Mencius might have been overly idealistic, the reality proves that it's challenging for influence to cross borders. However, when it comes to handling local matters, such as managing a company or improving Central Street, Confucianism is undoubtedly effective. This has been the mainstream understanding among scholars since Adam Smith. How to use emergent phenomena to change complex systems fundamentally. In Chilson's words, the approach is by controlling what you can control, yourself, and letting go of other things, you can help various systems you are involved in become more suitable for their functions. This is shaping. Chilson lists some shaping methods, all very modern and far more sophisticated than the brainwashing education during the authoritarian era of Confucianism. To summarize, there are 3 shaping methods. The first method is changing the environment. You can't force a horse to drink water, but you can lead it to the river. You can't force a child to do math problems, but you can create an environment where they easily develop an interest in math. We've read Stephens-Davidowitz's book, Don't Trust Your Gut, Using Data to Get What You Really Want in Life, before, and we know that besides providing genes, the most important thing parents can do for their children is to settle in a good community. Your neighbors, the adults from other families that your child interacts with, have a more significant influence on them than you do. Complex matters aren't designed. They grow. They require an ecological environment. The most crucial thing a government can do for the economy is to provide a good environment rather than giving direct orders to businesses. This applies to ourselves as well. All books that talk about forming good habits will tell you to arrange an environment that triggers good habits easily. If you believe sitting for a long time is harmful to your body, you can get a standing desk. If you want to run every day, put your running shoes in the most accessible place. The second method is building culture. We've discussed a lot about corporate culture. Corporate culture and values are not abstract but the most advanced leadership in this era. I heard that, in the 2020s, there are still factories locking workers on the assembly line, giving them no freedom. This management is not only unacceptable but also ineffective. Nowadays, who isn't their parents precious? If they endure it, it's only because they have no other choice. For high-level talents that require some autonomous judgment and initiative, the command and control system simply doesn't work. You have to decentralize power to the grassroots, but you also need to ensure the company moves in the right direction. Thus, you can only ask employees to play on the spot in specific actions, but align with the company's values. So, the most crucial aspect of modern leadership is not rewards and punishments through evaluations but proposing a vision to motivate employees. Make people unleash their maximum potential, willingly follow you to a place they wouldn't go on their own. For this, you must establish a shared culture to internalize the company's values. Returning to Buchanan's story about a beach with lots of litter, perhaps the role of culture is to promote a social norm where people take pride in a clean beach community. Not only do they take away their own trash but also pick up others' garbage. This sense of honor and initiative, this educational achievement, is much better than arranging 25 city inspectors patrolling, isn't it? Creating a distorted reality field like Steve Jobs did, making people identify with your values, is the most advanced leadership. The third and most fundamental shaping method is to set an example yourself. The starting point for all shaping must be yourself. Social norms spontaneously form, resulting from individuals changing themselves from within. For example, in the past, Chinese society considered beating one's wife as a domestic matter where outsiders shouldn't intervene. It was women standing up one by one, and after people understood the situation, attitudes slowly changed. Domestic violence became unacceptable, leading to China enacting the Anti-Domestic Violence Law in 2016. You don't have to deal with such grand themes. If you can slightly change small things around you, that's already a good form of shaping. Allow me to brag a bit here. I once shaped some things. I was the only person at the airport that day who stood up to voice concerns. I found a middle-aged male staff member and told him to call your leaders. I want to voice my concerns. A female staff member who might be a leader immediately came over, and I expressed dissatisfaction with the airport's organization. It became silent on the spot. Then someone expressed support for me. The staff said they would report and consider it. Another time, it was when I worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory in the United States, the place where Oppenheimer developed the atomic bomb. The laboratory had a large cafeteria sponsored by the government, and we had lunch there every day. There was a problem with the payment network at the cafeteria. Credit card processing was very slow. I noticed that the scientists eating there, some of whom might be involved in nuclear weapons, were indifferent to this. They even created a social norm that suggested, to reduce waiting time, we should try to pay with cash. I didn't like this norm, so one day, I told the cafeteria cashier, your payment network should be upgraded. The cashier immediately asked, can you fill out a form and submit a formal complaint? Your words are more effective than ours. I said, of course, and filled out the complaint on the spot. The action of filling out a protest form immediately attracted the attention of two managers, and they came over to ask what happened. I said I protested against your payment network. And a few days later, the issue of slow credit card processing was resolved. My experience is that regardless of success or failure, you feel very happy afterward. Because you participated. There is a particularly good word in English, engage, which means I am involved in this matter, I am against you, and if you don't work, I won't hesitate to conflict with you. I find that your matter is wrong, and I will engage. This is called an engaged citizen, an active citizen. Guiding social change is not the silent majority but engaged citizens. You see, I can shape something in life without even writing an article. Why can't you?
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.